I'm Alex. I sat there in the dim light of my garage that night, the clock ticking past midnight on December 24th, my hands trembling as I held the small audio device. I'd hidden in Sarah's car earlier that day. I'd been married to her for 10 years, building our life together while juggling the family business I ran with my brother Mike. But lately, she'd been distant, always on her phone, coming home late with excuses about work meetings. At 35, I felt like I'd given everything to keep our family stable, paying the bills, supporting Mike through his rough patches after our parents died, even covering his debts so the business wouldn't tank. But suspicions had been eating at me for weeks, her cold shoulder in bed, the way she avoided eye contact during dinner. And now this Mike was my desperate attempt to find out the truth before I lost my mind. Welcome to Brian's Stories. I share new life stories here every day, and I'd really appreciate it if you hit subscribe and liked my video. Drop a comment down below telling me where you're watching from and what time it is for you, right? Now, I read every single comment, and it helps me to know I'm not alone in this. I pressed play, the static crackling softly at first. Then Sarah's voice came through clear as day, laughing lightly as she drove. Mike, you sure no one's following us? Alex has been acting weird lately. My brother's voice responded, deep and smug like always. Don't worry, sis-in-law, he's too busy burying his head in those spreadsheets to notice anything. Besides, we've been careful for months now. My heart started pounding harder, a knot twisting in my stomach as I realized this wasn't just a casual chat. They were together in the car, alone. The recording kept going, and Mike's words hit me like a freight train. Sarah, listen, once we get Alex out of the picture, the business is ours. I've already started shifting those funds, made it look like he's been skimming off the top. The accountant bought it hook, line, and sinker. By next week, we'll have enough evidence to call a family meeting and vote him out. Then you file for divorce, blame his financial issues, and we split everything 50-50. No more playing second fiddle to my idiot brother. Sarah giggled, her tone playful but cutting. You're ruthless, Mike. But yeah, I'm tired of pretending. Alex is sweet, but he's holding us back. This affair's been the best thing that's happened to me in years. I paused the recording for a second, my breath coming in short gasps, feeling like the ground had dropped out from under me. Tears stung my eyes as I replayed that part, Mike's casual betrayal slicing through me. He was my blood, the guy I'd bailed out countless times, shared holidays with, trusted with our parents' legacy. And Sarah, the woman I'd built a home with, planning kids someday, now plotting behind my back like I was disposable. I leaned back against the workbench, the cold metal tools scattered around me, my mind racing through all the signs I'd ignored, the late nights, the whispered phone calls, Mike's sudden interest in the company's finances. Hitting play again, Sarah's voice picked up. What if he finds out about us before we spring the trap? He's not stupid, Mike. My brother chuckled, that arrogant laugh I knew too well. He won't. I've got backups, forged emails from his account, transfers that point right to him. If he pushes, we'll make it look like he's unstable. Maybe even threaten to go public with some dirt. Trust me, by the time we're done, he'll be begging to sign over his shares just to get away. The audio faded into traffic sounds, but those words echoed in my head, destroying every ounce of trust I'd ever had. I stood up slowly, pacing the garage floor, my fists clenched so tight my knuckles turned white. The pain was unbearable, like a fire burning through my chest, betrayal from the two people who should have had my back, turning my life into their scheme for money and control. I'd sacrificed weekends, vacations, everything to keep the business afloat. And this is how they repaid me? Isolation hit hard, too. Who could I even tell without blowing it? All up, my extended family adored Mike's charm, and Sarah played the perfect wife in public. I wiped my face, staring at the device, rage mixing with heartbreak as I realized my once secure world was crumbling. The garage felt smaller now, the holiday lights from the house next door mocking me through the window, Christmas Eve. And here I was, alone with this nightmare. I replayed the confession one more time, Mike's voice sealing it. Sarah, after this, we can finally be together for real. No more hiding. Alex will be out on the street and we'll run the show. She murmured agreement, and that was it, the end of the recording, but the start of my hell. Frozen in shock, I sank to the floor, tears streaming down as years of unspoken tensions exploded inside me, leaving me shattered and questioning every memory we shared. The next morning, Christmas Day, I woke up on the garage floor with a stiff neck and that damn recording still clutched in my hand. The holiday, cheer from the neighborhood seeping in like a bad joke, while my world felt like it was ending. I hadn't slept much, just replayed those voices in my head over and over, Mike's smug tone and Sarah's laugh twisting the knife deeper each time. I stuffed the device into my pocket and headed inside the house quietly. Not wanting to wake Sarah yet, she was still asleep in our bed upstairs, probably dreaming about her new life with my brother. The kitchen smelled like the coffee she'd set to brew automatically, a small routine we'd shared for years, but now it just made my stomach churn. I poured myself a cup and sat at the table, staring out the window at the snow-dusted yard, trying to process how everything I'd built could crumble so fast. Sarah came down around 9 a.m., and her hair tousled and wearing that red sweater I'd bought her last year, smiling like nothing was wrong. "Merry Christmas, honey," she said, leaning in to kiss my cheek, her lips brushing my skin in a way that used to feel warm but now sent a chill through me. I forced a smile back, nodding as she handed me a wrapped gift, a new watch, she explained, something practical for work. "I know you've been stressed with the business lately, Alex. This might help you keep track of time better." Her voice was sweet, too sweet, and I wondered if she was already playing her part in distracting me while Mike made his moves. We exchanged a few more words about plans for the day, visiting extended family later, opening more presents, but my mind was racing, piecing together how long this affair had been going on. Meanwhile, across town at the office, Mike was already kicking off his plan without me knowing, meeting with our accountant, Mr. Harlan, in a closed-door session that he'd scheduled the day before. Mike sat across from Harlan in the small conference room, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead as he slid a folder across the table. "Look, Harlan, I've been reviewing the books, and something's not adding up with Alex's entries," Mike said, his tone serious but laced with that fake concern he was so good at. Harlan adjusted his glasses, flipping through the papers Mike had prepared. Doctored spreadsheets showing transfers that looked like I'd been pulling funds for personal use. These look off, Mike. If this is accurate, it could be embezzlement. We need to flag this quietly for now." Mike nodded, leaning back in his chair with a sigh. "I hate to think my own brother would do this, but the numbers don't lie. Let's adjust the records to reflect the discrepancies. Make sure it's all documented so we can address it properly." Back at home, Sarah kept up the act, suggesting we skip the family visit and just relax together, her hand on my arm as we sat on the couch watching some holiday movie. "You've been working so hard, Alex. Let's make today about us," she murmured, snuggling closer. But I could feel the distance in her touch, like she was going through the motions. I played along, laughing at the right moments and even unwrapping her gift to me with feigned enthusiasm. But inside, doubts were flooding in. Every late night she'd claimed was for work. Every time Mike had borrowed money from the business without questions. Whispers started trickling in later that afternoon when my phone buzzed with a text from a colleague, Jenny, at the office. "Hey Alex, heard some rumblings about financial audits. Everything okay on your end?" I stared at the message, my pulse quickening, realizing Mike's alterations were already stirring things up. I didn't respond right away, instead excusing myself to the bathroom to listen to the recording again on my phone, earbuds in so Sarah wouldn't hear. Mike's words echoed, "I've already started shifting those funds," made it look like he's been skimming. It hit me then that this wasn't just talk. He was actually doing it, framing me to take the fall while he grabbed control. Downstairs, Sarah called up, "You all right up there? Come back, the movie's getting good." I shouted back that I'd be right down, but my resolve was hardening. I couldn't confront them yet. Not without more proof, but the seed was planted. I'd start watching closer, maybe check the business accounts myself without tipping them off. By evening, as we drove to Aunt Linda's for the family dinner, Sarah chatted about nothing important, her phone lighting up with a text she quickly silenced. I glanced over, but she smiled innocently. "Just work stuff, even on Christmas." At the gathering, Mike was there already, all smiles and backslaps, handing out gifts like he owned the world. "Brother, Merry Christmas," he boomed, pulling me into a hug that felt like a trap. We talked shop briefly, him mentioning casually, "Harlan and I went over some numbers today. Nothing big, just routine." His eyes met mine for a second too long, testing if I suspected anything. But I kept my face neutral, laughing it off. Inside, though, the pain of deception was gnawing at me, making me replay every family moment. Our parents' funeral, where Mike had leaned on me, the business expansions I'd led while he partied. Later that night, back home, Sarah turned to me in bed, her voice soft. "Alex, I love you, you know that? We've got a good life here." I mumbled agreement, but as she drifted off, I lay awake, the whispers from work echoing in my head alongside the recording. Colleagues were starting to doubt me. I could feel it, and Mike's subtle shifts were stripping away my standing bit by bit. I questioned every interaction now, the loans I'd approved for Mike, the vacations Sarah had taken alone. The hurt fueled a quiet fire. I wouldn't lash out yet, but I'd uncover more, piece by piece, before they buried me completely. A couple of days after Christmas, I was back at the office trying to act normal. logging into the business accounts on my computer while Mike was out for lunch. My fingers flying over the keyboard as I checked the recent transactions. Something felt off right away. There were entries I didn't recognize, loans approved under my name that I hadn't signed off on, tying me to debts that could sink us if they weren't paid. I leaned back in my chair, rubbing my temples, the fluorescent lights overhead buzzing like a warning as I realized this was Mike ramping things up, just like he'd bragged about in that recording. Sarah had been extra attentive at home, cooking my favorite meals and suggesting weekend getaways, but now I saw it for what it was, more distraction while they tightened the noose. My phone rang suddenly, breaking the silence, and I picked it up to hear a creditor on the line, his voice stern and professional. Mr. Alex Thompson, this is regarding the outstanding loan balance of €150,000 secured against your home equity. Payments are overdue, and we're initiating collection procedures. I froze, my heart racing as I stammered, there must be a mistake. I didn't authorize any loan like that. He cut me off politely but firmly. The documents have your signature, sir. We have copies if you'd like to review them. Failure to address this could lead to foreclosure proceedings. I hung up, staring at the screen where I'd pulled up the scanned loan docs from our shared drive. Sure enough, my signature was there, but it looked off, like someone had traced it from another form. Mike and Sarah had forged it, escalating their plan to not just push me out of the business, but to strip me of our home too, leaving me with nothing but mounting bills. Sarah texted me then, as if on cue, her message popping up. Hey love, everything okay at work? Miss you already. I didn't respond right away. Instead, driving home early to confront the pile of mail that had stacked up over the holidays. Ripping open envelopes to find more notices, credit card statements with charges I hadn't made, all linked back to the business. That evening, when Sarah got back from her errands, she found me at the kitchen table surrounded by papers, my face pale. Alex, what's all this? You look stressed, she said, setting down her bags and coming over to rub my shoulders, her touch feeling like a trap now. I held up one of the bills, keeping my voice steady. Creditors are calling about loans I don't remember taking. Any idea what's going on? She tilted her head, feigning confusion. Maybe it's a mix-up at the office? You and Mike handle that stuff. I'll call him if you want. Mike showed up later that night after Sarah texted him, walking into our living room like he owned the place, his coat still on as he glanced at the scattered documents. Bro, Sarah said you're freaking out over some bills. What's the deal? I pointed to the loan papers, trying to stay calm. This signature, it's not mine, and these transfers look suspicious. He chuckled, shaking his head with that charismatic grin that always won people over. Come on, Alex. You signed that stuff weeks ago during our last meeting. Remember? You were distracted with the holiday rush. I pushed back, my voice rising a bit. I don't remember any of it, Mike. This could cost us the house. He sighed dramatically, pulling out his phone to show a fake email thread. Look, here's the confirmation from you. Maybe you've been overworking. Stress can mess with memory. The next day, things got worse when I got a call from Uncle Rob, our dad's brother, who still held a small stake in the business, his tone laced with disappointment. Alex, Mike filled me in on the financial issues, said you've been handling things poorly. We're thinking of calling a family meeting to discuss leadership changes. I gripped the phone tighter, feeling the isolation kick in as I replied, Uncle Rob? It's not what it seems, let me explain. But he cut me short. Mike's got the proof, son. Numbers don't lie. We can't risk the family legacy. Hanging up, I felt humiliated, like the ground was shifting under me. Family members were already siding with Mike's smooth explanations, whispering about my supposed irresponsibility, leaving me to defend against lies I hadn't even fully uncovered yet. Sarah piled on that afternoon when I confronted her again in the bedroom, her eyes widening innocently as she packed a bag for what she called a quick work trip. Alex, if you're accusing me of something, just say it. Mike's your brother. He wouldn't do this. I held up the forged loan doc, my anger bubbling up. This is destroying us, Sarah. Creditors are threatening the house. She crossed her arms, her voice turning sharp. Maybe if you paid more attention instead of burying yourself in work, this wouldn't happen. Everyone's talking about how you're dropping the ball. Her words stung, amplifying the betrayal as I realized she was gaslighting me to buy more time for their scheme. I didn't push harder, not yet, but the pressure was mounting, bills piling up, family turning away. My reputation crumbling under their sabotage. By New Year's Eve, the conflict had escalated fully, with more calls from creditors and an email from our lawyer about potential audits, all pointing fingers at me. At a small family gathering that night, hosted by cousin Emily, Mike held court in the living room, charming everyone with stories while I stood in the corner, overhearing whispers like, "Poor Alex. Must be the stress getting to him. Emily pulled me aside, her expression sympathetic but doubtful. Mike says the business is in trouble because of some decisions you made. Is that true? I shook my head, frustration boiling. No, it's not me. I need time to prove it. But she patted my arm. Just sort it out, okay? We all want what's best. Driving home with Sarah, who chatted about resolutions like nothing was wrong, I clenched the wheel, my outrage building as their forged mess risked everything I'd built, setting me up for a fall that felt inevitable unless I fought back soon. The new year kicked off, but for me, it felt like the end of everything. Starting with an emergency email from the business's board, mostly family members like Uncle Rob and Cousin Emily, announcing my temporary suspension without pay pending a full independent audit of the alleged financial discrepancies. I was at home nursing a hangover from the forced cheer of New Year's Eve when the message popped up on my phone, the words blurring as I read them over and over, including attachments of prior email threads from the last few days where Mike had circulated. B. Preliminary findings, and called for an interim vote among stakeholders to appoint him as acting CEO until the audit wrapped up. Based on the evidence reviewed in our virtual meeting minutes from December 30th, the email stated, Mike Thompson will serve as interim CEO effective immediately to ensure operational stability. Sarah was in the kitchen making breakfast, humming to herself, and I called her over, my voice shaking. Look at this. I've been suspended temporarily while they audit. This is Mike's doing, pushing that vote through emails. She glanced at the screen, her expression sympathetic but distant. Alex, maybe it's just a precaution. You know, audits take time, and with those records floating around, the family had to act fast. By midday, things spiraled faster when a process server knocked on our door, handing me divorce papers from Sarah, citing irreconcilable differences and my financial irresponsibility as grounds for her to seek primary control of our marital assets, including the house we'd bought together 5 years ago under joint title. I stood there in the entryway, the papers crumpling in my hand as I turned to her, disbelief flooding me. Sarah, what the hell is this? You're filing for divorce now. Right when this audit hits? She crossed her arms, avoiding my eyes at first. I've been unhappy for months, Alex. With all this money trouble and the suspension, it's clear things aren't stable. I need to protect myself while the courts sort it out. Her words hit like a slap, confirming what I'd heard on that recording. She was jumping ship, leaving me to drown in the mess they'd created together. Probably timed with Mike's interim takeover to lock me out of any business funds during the divorce proceedings. I tried calling Mike right away, my fingers dialing his numbers. I paced the living room, the divorce papers scattered on the coffee table next to printouts of those board emails showing how he'd lined up the votes with attached evidence summaries. He picked up on the third ring, his voice calm and collected. Alex, I figured you'd call. The family board had no choice after reviewing those discrepancies. We voted via email chain to suspend you temporarily and put me in as interim to keep things running until the auditor clears it up. I exploded then, my tone rising. You know damn well I didn't embezzle anything. This is your frame job, rushing that vote. He laughed softly, that infuriating chuckle. Come on, bro, the docs speak for themselves. Transfers from your login, signatures on loans. The suspension's just protocol. If you're clean, you'll be back. Maybe you need a break anyway. I hung up, slamming the phone down, feeling the walls closing in as I realized my access to the business accounts had already been revoked per the interim vote, cutting me off from any quick way to challenge it before the audit. Sarah packed a bag that afternoon, saying she was staying with her sister for a bit to clear her head. But I knew it was probably to meet up with Mike without suspicion. Alex, this isn't easy for me either, she said at the door, her eyes misty but not enough to convince me. We've grown apart, and with the business in limbo under you, I have to move forward. I begged her to stay and talk it out, my voice cracking. Please, Sarah, after 10 years, we can wait for the audit. She shook her head, stepping out. It's too late. The lawyers will handle the division fairly. Left alone in the empty house, I sank onto the couch, the silence deafening as friends started texting, shared ones like our neighbor Tom and college buddy Lisa, asking if the rumors about the suspension and divorce were true, their messages laced with awkward sympathy that only deepened my isolation. The real humiliation came 2 days later. At an impromptu family gathering Mike organized at Uncle Rob's house, supposedly to discuss the business's future during the audit, but really to bury me publicly. I showed up uninvited after getting a tip from Jenny at the office, walking into a room full of relatives, Aunt Linda, Cousin Emily, even distant cousins, who fell silent as I entered. Mike stood at the head of the table, holding a stack of printed documents from the email chains, his face a mask of false regret. Alex, you shouldn't be here. This is for active stakeholders only now that the interim vote's in place. I pushed forward, addressing the group. Everyone listen, Mike's framing me. Those records are forged. Whispers erupted, but Mike raised his hand, cutting through. See, this is what I mean. Alex is in denial. Look at these emails from his account approving shady transfers. Loans that put our family assets at risk, all flagged in the prelim review that led to the suspension vote. Uncle Rob shook his head, his voice heavy with disappointment. Alex, we've seen the summaries Mike shared in the emails. You were supposed to carry on your parents' legacy, not risk it like this. We had to suspend you temporarily to protect the company. Cousin Emily chimed in, her tone sharp. How could you let this happen? Mike's stepping up as interim while the audit runs its course. Aunt Linda stayed quiet, avoiding my gaze and fidgeting with her napkin. Her silence hanging heavy like she wasn't fully convinced but wouldn't speak up. One distant cousin hesitated, murmuring, "This seems rushed," before glancing away with regret in his eyes, but no one else pushed back. I reached for my phone, thumb hovering over the recording app, thinking about playing it right there to expose their affair and plot, but I stopped cold. My mind racing, what if they turn it around on me for illegally recording without consent? Since we're in a two-party state and it could get thrown out in court anyway? Plus, it doesn't tie directly to the financial proof. Mike could just deny it and spin me as the paranoid one eavesdropping on family. I pocketed the phone instead, my hands shaking. You all believe this without hearing my side? The room murmured vague agreements, and Uncle Rob sighed. The audit will sort it, Alex. For now, step back. I stood there, heat rising in my face, feeling like a criminal in my own family as they twisted the narrative around the interim measures, portraying me as the betrayer who'd jeopardized our inheritance. Driving away from Uncle Rob's, tears blurred the road as isolation hit full force. No job while suspended, no wife with the divorce filing, no home if she pushed for exclusive possession during proceedings, and family mostly buying into Mike's story, leaving my reputation in tatters. I checked into a cheap motel that night, the kind with flickering neon signs and thin walls, lying on the lumpy bed staring at the ceiling. Everything I'd built, the business I'd poured sweat into after our parents died, the marriage I'd fought to keep alive through tough times, was slipping away in this cascade of lies, with the temporary suspension feeling like a permanent exile. Mike's greed had stripped me bare, leaving me humiliated and alone, with relatives viewing me as the villain who'd betrayed them all. The pain was suffocating, like I'd lost my entire identity overnight. Once the reliable brother and husband, now just a suspended failure crashing in a dingy room. As I replayed the family accusations and Aunt Linda's avoided gaze in my head, outrage mixed with utter despair, wondering if I'd ever climb out of this hole, the loneliness crushing me in the silence. I lay there in that dingy motel room, the cheap sheets scratching my skin as I stared at the water-stained ceiling, the events of the past few days crashing over me like waves I couldn't escape. The temporary suspension from the business, Sarah's divorce filing, the family gathering where most everyone bought into Mike's lies, it all piled up, leaving me numb and questioning if fighting back was even worth it. My phone buzzed on the nightstand with another text from Tom, our neighbor, checking in awkwardly. "Hey man, heard about the split and work stuff. You okay?" I didn't reply, just let the screen go dark, feeling the weight of isolation press down harder, like I was buried under the rubble of my old life. Hours ticked by in that stuffy room, the hum of the ancient air conditioner, the only sound breaking the silence. And I replayed everything in my head, the forged loans, the email votes that made Mike interim CEO, Sarah's cold exit. Tears had dried up sometime during the night, replaced by a hollow ache in my chest. But as dawn light filtered through the thin curtains, something shifted inside me. I sat up slowly, rubbing my face, realizing wallowing here wouldn't change a thing. Mike and Sarah were probably celebrating right now, thinking they'd won, but I couldn't let them erase me that easily. I grabbed my phone and scrolled through contacts, landing on an old college friend, Ben, who I'd lost touch with, but knew had become a private investigator after graduation, specializing in discreet corporate digs and personal matters. I hesitated for a second, then hit call, my voice rough when he picked up. "Ben, it's Alex Thompson. Yeah, from State U. Listen, I need your help off the books." Ben's voice came through steady and surprised at first. "Alex, man, it's been years. What's going on? You sound like hell." I paced the small room, glancing at the peeling wallpaper as I laid it out briefly, the suspicions, the recording, the frame-up, without going into every detail yet. My brother's screwing me over with the family business, and my wife's in on it. They've got me suspended pending audit, divorce papers served. I need someone to track their moves quietly, dig into finances without alerting them. He paused, then chuckled lightly. "Sounds messy, but yeah, I can help. Old time's sake. Meet me at that diner off Route 12 in an hour. Bring whatever evidence you got." I agreed, hanging up with a spark of purpose igniting, the first since that garage night, deciding right then to play weak, act like I was broken and out of the picture, while gathering what I needed to flip this around. I showered quickly in the motel's lukewarm water, threw on yesterday's clothes, and headed out, the winter chill biting as I drove to the diner, my mind sharpening with each mile. Ben was already there in a corner booth, looking older but familiar with his scruffy beard and sharp eyes, nursing a coffee. "Alex, you look like you haven't slept in days," he said as I slid in across from him, the waitress dropping off menus we ignored. I nodded, pulling out my phone to show him the recording discreetly, earbuds in so no one overheard. This is what started at Mike and Sarah in her car, admitting the affair and the plan to frame me for embezzlement. Ben listened intently, his brow furrowing as Mike's voice spilled out the details. "Damn, that's cold. Your own brother? Okay, first off, this recording's gold. But in a two-party consent state like ours, it might not hold up in court without more. Could get you hit with wiretapping claims if you play it wrong." I leaned forward, keeping my voice low as the diner buzzed around us with morning chatter. "I know, that's why I didn't blast it at the family meeting. But listen again, Mike mentions shifting funds and hidden accounts, says he's got backups." Ben replayed that part, nodding slowly. "Yeah, he slips up here. I've got those transfers routed through the offshore account under the old vendor name. That's a clue, probably a shell account they used for the frame. I can start there, trace any unusual transactions without pinging the main system." Relief washed over me, mixed with a growing resolve, as I sipped the black coffee the waitress poured. Good, I want to stay hidden, act like I'm falling apart so they drop their guard. "No direct confrontations yet, just build the case." Ben jotted notes on a napkin, his tone professional. "Smart. I'll tail them discreetly, check public records, maybe hack into non-secure emails if needed. Ethically, of course. Give me a week, I'll update you daily via burner app." As we talked more, Ben shared a bit about his work, how he'd helped others in similar messes, uncovering affairs and financial scams which fueled my decision to strike back calculated, not rash. "You've got leverage here, Alex," he said, sliding the napkin with key points my way. "That offshore mention? If it's real, it could link back to Mike's personal accounts, proving he doctored the books, not you." I pocketed it, feeling the first crucial clue take root, my despair fading into focused anger. "Thanks, Ben, I owe you." He waved it off. "Pay me when we nail them. For now, lay low, delete this call log, use cash, play the victim a bit longer." Leaving the diner, I drove back to the motel with a plan forming. No more tears or self-pity. Instead, a quiet determination to expose them. Starting with that hidden account detail from the recording. Back in the room, I reviewed the audio again on my laptop, transcribing Mike's words carefully. Noting the vendor name he mentioned, Global Supplies LLC, something we'd used years ago but phased out. It hit me then, this was my awakening, the seed of counterattack planted firm. I texted Ben the detail right away, using the secure app he suggested. "Check Global Supplies might be the offshore front." His reply came quick. "On it. Stay ghost." I leaned back against the headboard, the room's musty smell less oppressive now, my mind racing ahead to how I'd use this without tipping my hand. No more rash moves like almost playing the tape at Uncle Rob's. Patience would be my weapon, letting Mike and Sarah think I'd crumbled while Ben and I built the truth brick by brick. The pain still lingered, that raw betrayal, but it fueled me now, turning isolation into strategy as I prepared to reclaim what was mine. Over the next week, I stayed hidden in that motel, surviving on vending machine snacks and black coffee, while Ben sent sporadic updates through our secure app, each one a mix of progress and warnings that kept me on edge. I'd refresh the app every hour, the motel's weak Wi-Fi frustrating me as I waited for anything that could start turning this mess around, but Ben was cautious, always reminding me we were treading thin ice. The first lead came on January 6th when he texted a screenshot from public loan records. Pulled. "This from county filings. Your SIG on the loan looks off, like it was lifted from an old scan. But it's just a hunch without forensic analysis. Banks take co-owner word at face value, so Mike could have submitted it easily." I stared at the image on my phone, comparing it to a real signature I'd dug up from my personal files. The slight pixelation suggesting edits, but I knew it wasn't courtroom ready yet. Probably pulled from a deleted business folder, and without a chain of custody, it could be dismissed as tampered. Ben called that evening on the burner, his tone measured as always. "Alex, I accessed some old server backups remotely. Nothing deep, just what I could get without risking alerts, but found an email trail between Mike and Harlan from November. Mike's instructing adjustments under your name, Harlan pushing back a bit." I leaned against the motel wall, the phone pressed to my ear. "Send it over." "That's proof, right?" He hesitated. Not yet. These are from a recycled drive. We'd need a subpoena to authenticate them officially. Or they could claim hacking. If this leaks early, Mike flips it on us for unauthorized access. I nodded to myself, downloading the files he shared. Reading Mike's words. Backdate these to Alex's entries, cover the gaps. Harlan replied, This skirts the line, Mike. It fueled my anger, but Ben's warning echoed in my head, keeping me from getting too hopeful. This was a lead, not a slam dunk, hidden in deleted folders that might vanish if Mike scrubbed deeper. On the financial side, Ben focused on public records for the offshore stuff. Texting, traced Global Supplies LLC through biz filings. It's linked to transfers, but the full bank trail's behind privacy walls. Shows small outflows that match the embezzlement amounts, possibly to Mike's personal account. I reviewed the statements he'd attached, numbers aligning with the discrepancies, but incomplete without account details. Can you get more? I messaged back. His reply was quick. Not without court order for subpoenas. This is surface level. Pushing harder risks pinging their monitors. That night I sat at the small desk, piecing it together on my laptop. The partial transfers hinting at Mike's siphoning. But I reminded myself these were suspicions, not ironclad, needing an official audit to connect the dots fully. Or Mike could deny it as coincidence. For the affair, Ben kept it low-key, sending hotel receipts from public credit reports, matched Sarah's card to stays near Mike's office, plus a few blurry tail photos from public spots. No close eavesdropping, just observation. The images showed them entering a lobby together, time-stamped since September, stirring that gut-wrenching betrayal again. Links to the plot? I asked in our next call. Ben sighed. Indirectly, shows motive, but no chain tying it to the fraud, usable for divorce leverage maybe. But whisper it wrong and they sue for privacy invasion. I saved the files, my hands clenching the mouse, hope flickering but tempered by fear. This ammo felt real, yet fragile, like it could crumble if challenged without proper legal backing. Then Ben mentioned tracking down Carla, the ex-employee, meeting her at a neutral coffee shop after a LinkedIn message. She gave a statement about Mike pressuring her to alter docs, signed an affidavit. But it's hearsay without the originals, and she's skittish, might bail if threatened. He forwarded the scan, Carla detailing Mike's boasts about pushing Alex out, motivated by her own firing grudge. This is good, I said, my voice rising a bit. Ben cut in firmly. Hold up, it's a start, but needs corroboration via audit. If Mike finds out we contacted her, he could intimidate her or trace back to us. That planted a seed of worry. I deleted the app's cache after every session, switching burners as Ben suggested, but he added, felt like someone was watching during the tail yesterday. Mike might be checking server logs if he's paranoid. My pulse quickened at that, imagining Mike detecting a digital footprint, the risk making me double-check my VPN. While this trickled in, Mike and Sarah acted like victors, Ben reporting a dinner sighting where they dined out openly, toasting quietly. Overheard snippets about smooth asset split in the divorce. Sarah's lawyer kept emailing demands for the house and shares, citing my misconduct, and I ignored them, playing defeated by not contesting yet. But inside, the leads built a smoldering fire, forged SIG suspicions, unauthenticated emails from backups, partial bank traces needing subpoenas, affair hints without direct fraud links, Carla's tentative affidavit. Ben met me in a park, handing a USB with the compiled leads. This tilts things your way subtly. Alex, but it's not fireable yet. Leak any and it backfires, alerting them before we're ready. I took it, nodding. I get it. Patience. He eyed the surroundings warily. Yeah, and stay vigilant. If Mike spots any trail, he'll strike back hard. Driving away, I gripped the wheel, a controlled tension coiling in my chest. Hope for the first time, but laced with fear, reminding myself not to celebrate. Just gather and wait as the balance shifted ever so slightly. Their overconfidence my temporary shield. By mid-January, I felt ready to test the waters with a small strike. Nothing big enough to reveal my hand, but sharp enough to rattle Mike's cage. Using one of the leads Ben had flagged as low risk, the partial bank statements showing those suspicious transfers to Global Supplies. I sat in the motel room that morning, laptop open on the rickety table, staring at the anonymous email account Ben had set up for me. My fingers hovering over the keyboard as I drafted a tip to the business's external auditor, the one handling the ongoing review of the alleged embezzlement. Check discrepancies in vendor accounts, specifically Global Supplies LLC, transfers don't add up, I typed, attaching a redacted screenshot of the public filing Ben had pulled. Careful not to include anything traceable back to me. Ben had warned me again last night during our call. This plants doubt, Alex, but keep it anonymous. If it backfires, deny everything. I hit send, my heart pounding, imagining the auditor's face as they dug in, potentially shaking Mike's confidence without him knowing who pulled the string. Later that day, Ben messaged me from his tail. "Mike's at the office with Harlan, looks tense, probably got wind of the audit query already." I paced the room, the winter sun slanting through the blinds, a mix of satisfaction and nerves building as I waited for more. Sure enough, by evening, Ben called with details he'd overheard from a discreet spot near the office window. Mike was ranting to Harlan, "Who the hell tipped off the auditor about Global? This could unravel everything if they subpoena the full records." I gripped the phone, a small smile creeping on my face for the first time in weeks. "Good, let him sweat," I said, my voice steady. Ben chuckled, but added caution. "It's a start, but he's not down yet. Just cracked his armor a bit." The next morning, I got another update when Ben forwarded an intercepted public post from the company's internal Slack channel, nothing hacked, just from a contact he'd cultivated quietly. Mike had posted a vague memo to staff. "Routine audit questions arising, stay focused, no cause for alarm." But Jenny, my old colleague, texted me separately, her message popping up on my burner. "Hey Alex, auditor called about some vendor stuff today." Mike seemed off. "Everything okay?" I replied vaguely. "Not sure, hope it clears up." Planting a seed of doubt in her mind without committing. It felt good, this subtle shift watching from afar as whispers started in the office. Colleagues questioning Mike's smooth explanations for the first time since my suspension. Sarah got pulled into the ripple that afternoon. Ben reporting she'd met Mike at a cafe. Their faces serious over coffee. He snapped a distant photo, texting it with, "Overheard Sarah asking, what if they link it back to us?" Mike brushed it off, but he looked rattled. I stared at the image on my screen. Sarah's worried expression a tiny victory. Cracks forming in their alliance, her confidence waning as the audit probe hit close to home. That evening, Sarah even called me unexpectedly, her voice tentative on the line. "Alex, have you heard anything about the audit? Mike says it's routine, but..." I played dumb, keeping my tone defeated. "No, Sarah, I'm out of the loop, suspended, remember? What's going on?" She hesitated, then said, "Nothing, just checking in. The divorce papers are moving forward, by the way." I hung up, my fists clenched, the conversation confirming she'd overheard Mike's panic. Distrust budding between them like I'd hoped. The next day, the counterblow landed harder when the auditor followed up publicly, emailing the board, including Uncle Rob and Cousin Emily, a request for more docs on global supplies, which Ben intercepted through his channels. Mike called a quick family Zoom that night, Ben tipping me off so I could listen in anonymously via a shared link from Aunt Linda, who still had her silent doubts. Mike's face filled the screen, his usual charm strained as he addressed the group. "Folks, the auditor's asking about an old vendor. Nothing to worry about, just dotting E's." Uncle Rob frowned, his voice crackling. "Mike, this seems specific. Tied to the embezzlement claims?" Mike waved it off. "Coincidence, Alex's mess spilling over, but I'll handle it." Cousin Emily chimed in sharply. "Handle it fast. We can't afford delays in the audit." Aunt Linda stayed quiet again, her camera off, but the distant cousin who'd hesitated before muttered, "Feels off. Maybe we should look closer." Mike ended the call abruptly, his frustration clear, the seed of distrust sprouting within their circle. I leaned back in the motel chair after, replaying the Zoom in my mind, a strategic satisfaction warming me despite the lingering pain of betrayal. This small strike had tested the waters without a full reveal, heightening the conflict as Mike scrambled to contain it, his overconfidence cracking under the pressure. Ben texted later, "Good play, but watch your back. He's digging into who tipped them." I nodded to the empty room, emotions shifting from raw hurt to calculated focus, knowing this was just the beginning, the balance tilting a bit more in my favor while they panicked quietly. The backlash hit fast the day later, just a day after that family Zoom where Mike's frustration showed through the screen, and I was back in the motel refreshing Ben's app when his urgent message popped up. "Mike's on the move shredding docs at the office late last night, caught it on a public cam feed." I sat up straight on the bed, the springs creaking under me as I called him right away, my voice low. "What docs? Anything tying to our leads?" Ben sounded tense on the line. Hard to say from afar, but he was in the file room for hours, probably originals of those email backups and vendor statements we flagged. "He's covering tracks now that the audit's probing global supplies." I cursed under my breath, pacing to the window and peeking through the blinds at the empty parking lot, feeling the noose tightening again as Mike escalated to destroy what little paper trail remained. By midday, things got worse when Ben reported Mike had hired his own investigator, some shady guy from a local firm, to dig into the anonymous tip. Ben had spotted the guy tailing him during a routine check. Alex, this guy's asking around about recent contacts with ex-employees like Carla. Ben said in our next call, his tone edged with caution. Mike's probably piecing it together. If he links it to you, we're exposed. I gripped the phone, my mind racing back to that planted risk from our gathering phase, the feeling someone was watching. Can you shake him? I asked. Ben paused. Trying, but Mike's pushing hard, issued a cease and desist to my office this morning, claiming potential harassment. It's a bluff, but it slows me down. The news hit like a gut punch, Mike intensifying the sabotage by turning the tables, making us look like the aggressors while he buried evidence. Sarah piled on that afternoon with a nasty email from her lawyer, attaching affidavits from witnesses at the business, claiming I'd been unstable before the suspension, twisted stories about me yelling in meetings that never happened. This supports our motion for exclusive possession of the marital home during proceedings. The email read, due to Mr. Thompson's erratic behavior. I stared at the screen, heat rising in my face as I realized Mike had fed her this ammo, spreading rumors to discredit me further. My phone rang then, Sarah's number flashing, and I answered warily. Alex, what's with these stories I'm hearing? Colleagues saying you're unhinged. Mike showed me texts. Her voice was accusatory, like she'd bought his spin completely. It's lies, Sarah, I shot back, trying to stay calm. He's covering his ass because the audit's closing in. She laughed bitterly. Or you're desperate and making stuff up. Stay away from us or we'll get a restraining order. She hung up, leaving me fuming. The threats escalating as their alliance cracked but reformed against me. The real blow came that evening when police knocked on my motel door. 2 officers, standing there with badges gleaming under the porch light. Their expressions neutral but firm. Mr. Thompson, we need to ask about some harassment complaints, the lead one said, notepad in hand. I invited them in reluctantly. The room's clutter making me feel even more cornered as I sat on the bed. Harassment? From who? The officer glanced at his notes. Your brother Mike says you've been sending anonymous tips to disrupt the business, possibly hacking systems. And your wife mentioned unstable behavior. My stomach dropped. Mike's counterstrike landing hard by involving the cops, twisting my tip into a crime. That's not true, I said, keeping my voice even. I'm suspended, going through a divorce. Why would I harass them? The second officer nodded sympathetically. Just routine questions, sir. Any recent contact with a private investigator? I denied it flatly, my mind flashing to Ben, but they pressed. Mike provided logs showing unauthorized server access attempts. Points to you. I shook my head. Must be a mistake. I'm not involved. They left after 20 minutes, warning me to stay clear, but the damage was done. Humiliation flooding back as I realized Mike had fabricated digital trails to frame me again. Ben called right after, his voice hushed like he was on the move. Heard about the cops. Mike's guy must have planted those logs. Shredded evidence means our partial statements are harder to corroborate now. I leaned against the wall, the motel's thin plaster cool on my back. What do we do? Feels like we're losing ground. Ben sighed. Lay lower, I'm ditching this tale, but Mike's threatening legal action against me for industrial espionage. If he sues, it ties us up. The threats piqued my fear. Mike destroying physical docs while issuing warnings through lawyers and police, making it seem like I was the unstable one harassing them. That night, I packed a small bag, switching motels under cash to evade any further tales. The isolation hitting harder as friends like Tom texted, "Cops asking about you. Rumors you're cracking up. You need help?" I didn't reply. Renewed humiliation burning as family whispers turned to outright avoidance. Aunt Linda even ignoring my call when I tried reaching out. By January 20th, Mike had escalated fully, hosting another board meeting Ben tipped me about, where he presented cleaned records to the auditor, downplaying the global query as a glitch. Ben messaged, "He's spinning it your way, blaming you for any anomalies." And the cop's visit bolsters his unstable brother narrative. I sat in the new motel's dim light, staring at the USB of leads, emotions peaking with despair as it appeared I'd lose again, forced deeper into hiding while their sabotage intensified. But our gathered leverage, the recording, Carla's affidavit, kept a flicker of survival alive, reminding me this was just a setback, threats looming but not fatal yet. After Mike's latest strikes shredded some of the physical trails, I pushed forward to lock down what we had left, meeting Ben at a quiet park bench that morning where the bare trees swayed in the cold breeze. His face serious as he passed me a thin folder of recovered emails from a third-party backup service we just accessed. These show Mike's instructions to Harlan about altering the entries. Suspicious origins all over them, enough to make him explain himself under pressure, Ben said, glancing over his shoulder. But they're not a slam dunk yet. We'd need the audit to force full disclosure. I flipped through the pages quickly, noting the timestamps that hinted at forgery but left room for Mike to deny, my mind already racing to how this could demand answers at the board meeting without sealing the case outright. I spent the afternoon on my burner phone, starting with Carla to shore up her statement. She picked up after a few rings, her voice hesitant. "Alex, I'm still in, but Mike's guy called me yesterday asking questions. My affidavit's ready, but it's just my word until the original surface." I reassured her. "Hang tight, we'll use it to back the emails, make him squirm." Then I drove to Aunt Linda's house under the fading light, slipping in through the back door as she let me in, her eyes darting to the street. "Alex, Mike's been calling everyone, says you're stirring trouble," she whispered, leading me to the living room where I sat her down and showed her the email printouts first. The suspicious alterations laid out. "This looks wrong, but is it enough?" she asked, frowning. I nodded carefully, then played a short clip of the recording for the motive angle. Mike's voice mentioning the affair and plot, her hand trembled slightly. "That explains the tension. I'll speak up at the meeting, but quietly. I don't want him turning on me before we start." Ben and I hashed out the plan that evening over secure messages, focusing on the board meeting where Mike planned to push his version of the audit. "Lead with the emails and bank leads for the legal push," Ben typed. "Recording second for the emotional hit, shows motive, but the backbone's the paper trail and witnesses." I replied, "Agreed, but I'm wary. If he suspects encounters mid-meeting, it could fall apart." The thought gnawed at me, Mike's recent police involvement fresh in my mind, making me double-check every detail, like unopened subpoena responses for the full bank records Ben had filed through channels. Preliminary nods had come back hinting at mismatches in the transfers, but nothing final yet, just enough to raise flags and force explanations without closing the loop. I met with a lawyer Ben connected me to, Ellis, in his small office downtown. Spreading out the folder on his desk, the emails, partial bank traces awaiting subpoena fulfillment, affair photos for context, and Carla's statement. "This builds a strong case for doubt," Ellis said, scanning the docs. "The emails suggest tampering, banks show odd flows that need accounting, witnesses add weight, but it's preliminary. We'll use it to demand responses at the meeting, not convict outright." I leaned forward, my pulse steady but alert. "What if Mike spins it or pulls a last-minute block?" He shrugged slightly. "Possible, timing's key. We'll have a neutral observer there, but stay sharp. No guarantees until it's out." Leaving with the plan firmed up, subpoenas pending, emails ready to prompt questions, I felt a wary control settling in, confident enough to move, but mindful that one wrong step could unravel it all, Mike's threats still echoing. That night, Ben sent a final update from his tail. "Mike and Sarah out again, talking audit close. Overconfident, but he's checking logs more." I stared at the photo he attached, their relaxed postures a reminder not to underestimate, packing my bag with the folder and USB carefully, deleting old messages as a precaution. I called Aunt Linda once more, her tone firmer now. "I'm set, Alex, but if he fights dirty," I cut in softly. We pushed through emails first to corner him, recording to twist the knife on motive. Lying in the motel bed later, sleep evading me, I ran through the sequence in my head, the setup poised but fragile. Tomorrow the real test where everything would hang in the balance. No room for slips. The board meeting started in the company's conference room. The polished table lined with family and shareholders, Uncle Rob presiding, Cousin Emily jotting notes, Aunt Linda sitting with a tight expression, and distant relatives patched in on screens. Mike positioned himself at the front in his sharp suit, flipping through his presentation on the projector with slides of sanitized financials, insisting the audit was concluding with the blame squarely on me for the discrepancies. Sarah sat nearby, her support for him obvious as she nodded during his pitch. "We've turned things around under my interim role," Mike said, his tone polished. "Let's make it official. Vote me in as CEO." I waited just outside with Ben, Ellis the lawyer, and a pair of officers on standby, my grip on the evidence folder steady as I drew a deep breath, ready to step in. Ellis nodded, and we entered, the door opening firmly enough to halt Mike mid-sentence, heads turning as I walked to the table's end. "This isn't over, Mike. The real story needs to come out before any vote," I said, keeping my voice level. Mike's eyes narrowed, his composure slipping as he stood. "Alex, you're out. Call security." Uncle Rob raised a hand. "Wait, let's see what he has. We're family." Ellis passed around the recovered emails from the third-party backup, the ones detailing Mike's directives to Harlan about shifting the entries. "These show instructions to alter records and pin it on Alex," Ellis explained, turning to the Zoom where Harlan appeared. "Mr. Harlan, your take on these?" Harlan adjusted his tie, glancing off screen. I need to consult my lawyer before commenting. The silence hung heavy, murmurs starting as I followed with the partial bank statements, the preliminary subpoena responses flagging the transfers to global supplies tied to Mike's accounts. Funds moved to look like my doing, but tracing back to him, I added, Sarah's gaze shifting uneasily toward Mike. Mike slammed a fist lightly on the table, his face reddening. This is all doctored. Alex is desperate, spreading lies after his suspension. But Aunt Linda leaned forward then, her voice cutting through. I've reviewed these emails, Mike. They raise serious questions. And our distant cousin here has doubts too. The cousin on screen nodded slowly. Those transfers seem targeted, needs explaining. Ellis pressed on. The prelim banks hint at embezzlement not from Alex. Full subpoenas are pending. But this demands an immediate hold on any votes. Mike shot back. You have nothing concrete, just suspicions. I connected my phone to the projector, playing the recording as a final layer. Mike's voice echoing about the affair and plot to frame me. Not as proof of the fraud, but to expose the why behind it all. Gasps rippled. Uncle Rob's brow furrowed deeply. Cousin Emily covered her mouth. And Sarah turned away, whispering, Mike, as the clip ended. Mike froze, then barked, That's inadmissible, illegal recording. Ellis countered calmly. It illustrates motive alongside the financial trails, enough to open a formal investigation here. And now. The room tensed as the officers stepped closer at Ellis's signal, Uncle Rob standing to address Mike. This changes everything. You're stepping down immediately, Mike. We'll freeze all assets and turn this over to authorities for a full probe. Mike backed up, protesting, You can't do this without proof. But the board murmured agreement, Emily saying sharply, We can and we are. The officers escorted Mike out for questioning, his glare burning into me as he went. Sarah following quietly behind, her head down without a word. The meeting wrapped in stunned quiet, the family turning from Mike's narrative. My suspension lifted on the spot as Uncle Rob shook my hand. We'll sort the rest, Alex. You've cleared your name here. I nodded, the weight easing slightly as I left the room. Dignity returning in the hushed aftermath. Weeks later, the investigation unfolded steadily, the full subpoenas confirming the embezzlement, leading to Mike's arrest on charges of fraud and forgery, his pleas falling flat in court. Sarah faced accessory scrutiny, her divorce claims denied as complicity surfaced, leaving her with nothing but regrets and family disownment. Assets were seized to recover the siphoned funds, the business thriving again under my lead as I rebuilt ties with honest relatives and sought therapy to move past the scars. Standing in my office one quiet evening, the city lights steady below, I whispered to myself, Trust is earned, not inherited. The simple truth anchoring my restored pride amid the ruins of their greed. Sometimes what we need isn't advice, but someone to stand by us and say, That's enough. If this story brings you even a little relief, drop a comment down below telling me where you're watching from and what time it is for you, right? Now, I read every line, and I make these videos to remind you, you are not alone. On screen right now, you'll see 2 new stories I think you'll really enjoy. There are many more waiting for you on the channel, so don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss one. See you in the next story. Until then, take care of yourself and the people you love. With all my love and respect.